representing NEO, powered by Better Mortgage. I'm joined here this evening by my co-host, Devin Egan from the Tax Hive. Great to see you, Devin.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
This is going to be a lot of fun. Tonight's webinar is going to be primarily focused on the first half. Devin is going to kick off. I'm going to give him the reins, and he's going to talk about the new rules of taxes, wealth saving strategies every entrepreneur and investor needs to know right now. We all know there's been a lot of changes in the tax world, and you should have as much cash flow as humanly possible in your life. And Devin's going to share some great strategies for that. I see we already have a hand raised. This format, I don't think we can actually bring on verbal questions, but my suggestion to everybody, we absolutely want as much interaction as possible. So at the bottom of the Zoom, you will see a little button that says Q&A. Feel free to throw your questions in there, and then also use the chat function. In fact, if you want to just go into the chat function so we get a little interaction there, just go ahead and type in, where are you coming from this evening? I'm coming from my home office in Park City, Utah. So Devin's going to take the first 30 minutes of tonight's webinar, and he's going to be talking about the new tax rules. Then he's going to hand it over to me. I'm going to spend about 10 minutes talking about entrepreneur capital lines and home mortgages that do not require 2 years tax returns to qualify. And then if all goes as planned, we should have about 15 minutes at the end to just hang out with you and answer your questions and go real deep on anything else you want to learn about. So we've got, all right, Indianapolis, Fargo, North Dakota, Draper, Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, and a couple of more Utah folks. So that's fantastic. Welcome. It's great to have you here. And again, if you're just joining us, feel free to use the Q&A or the chat function. Now, before I introduce Devin, I thought we would just get a little bit of humor and a little bit of insight from my friend Mark Twain, who famously said, "What's the difference between a taxidermist and a tax collector? The taxidermist takes only your skin." I thought that'd be a good frame for you, Devin. So let me introduce my friend Devin here. Devin Egan is an entrepreneur. He's a business strategist, and he's the president of Tax Hive, a leading tax advisory firm for business owners. Devin's ventures include mortgage, real estate, e-commerce, networking, pickleball. Give me a thumbs up for anybody that's in the pickleball world. He brings real-world experience in building and scaling businesses. As founder of Business Accelerator, Devin mentors entrepreneurs on growth strategies and operational excellence. A devoted husband of 14 years, father of 4, lifelong competitor, he thrives on innovation, collaboration, and helping others win in business and life. And tonight, he's going to help us understand how to maximize this new tax code, pay less, and keep more. So Devin, take it away, my friend. Thanks for being here.
Man, I'm so grateful to be here and so glad to be with everyone on the call. I see all of your names, Wallace and Aaron and Brock and Scott and Colin, Lee, Alicia, so many great people. Thanks for your time. I'm going to make it worth every single second. We're just going to crush it for you on the taxes side of things. And I know this is not a topic that most of you are on the edge of your seat about. This is not, forgive the word, but this is not sexy. It's not super appealing, but it's necessary, right? And I'm going to make it as fun and entertaining as I can, but highly educational. I want to kind of blow your mind about how taxes work and maybe how taxes are costing you more money than you actually think. And then I want to provide a solution for everyone that says, hey, if I want to fix this problem, how do I do it? Who's the right partner? And what strategies should I be employing to get that done the right way? I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can kind of follow along in this conversation. And right out of the gates, I just want to make it clear about who Tax Hive is and what we do, right? So I'm grateful for this partnership with NEO, powered by Better Mortgage. Fantastic group with Josh and his team. And I've got one other gentleman involved here. He doesn't have quite the head of hair that Josh has, but he's my bald brother, Kevin O'Leary, right? Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. So if you're wondering what the heck I'm doing hanging out with Kevin, there's a bald convention in Miami. No, Kevin is an equity partner in Tax Hive. right? So he's not just this fancy paid spokesperson. He's an equity owner in the business. He has a vested interest in not only the success of TaxHive, but in our clients' success, that they win the tax game. And probably nobody knows it better than Kevin as to how taxation can really cripple a business, its cash flow, its revenues, its profitability. If we don't figure this out as investors, as entrepreneurs, well, then it may never matter how much money you make at the end of the day if you simply can't keep it, right? So right out of the gates, make that clear. I'm also happen to be in Orem, Utah. So all my fellow Utah people in the chat, close proximity to you, right down the freeway here. And as we get started in this, I'm very interested in your interaction. I've got one question to start. How much do you all pay in taxes? Use that chat function, throw it in the chat. How much are you paying in taxes? Give me a percentage. And I usually get somebody in the group that's really clever and they say way too much, which is the right answer. But I want you to give me some response here. Somebody that's, bold and brave and dares even say it out loud. How much are you paying in tax? And typically the numbers that I see, I've got Josh here. Hey, I'm using a tax seg. Hey, I love you got cost seg in the strategy, 17%. First and foremost, I'm impressed that you even know the number, right? A lot of people that we talk to on these calls, it's like, I'm not really sure. I've got Alicia coming in at 30%. Do we want to turn this into an auction? Who's the winner, right? Or who's the loser? Who's the one paying the most, right? I got 22% from Brock, top end usually. Now, here's the thing. I asked a horrible question, or I didn't provide you all with the full context. I asked you how much you paid, and you immediately went to, our minds just do this like organically. You immediately thought, how much do I pay in income tax? But hold on, friends, like pump the brakes. You and I don't only pay income tax. We pay a whale of a lot more. In this great grand country that I love dearly, we're taxed when we earn it. We're taxed when we buy it. We're taxed if we sell it. We're taxed while we own it, right? Property taxes and sales tax. And it's not just income tax. You look at your phone bill, when you fill your car up with gas, or you pump it full of electricity, whatever it is, tax. I don't think I'd be crazy to say about half of every dollar you and I make goes to some version of a tax. In certain states, it might even be worse. So let me show you this, because all of us on this call, it doesn't matter if you're leveraging your way into assets, you're growing a business, you're an entrepreneur at heart, you've got a side hustle, or you're just a W-2 wage earner. In every case, everyone wants to hold on to more of their money. And we all simply want to invest our money and grow it over time. So watch this. This is $1. This goes back to old, I'm a young kid, and a mentor of mine teaches me about compounding interest and what happens to money when we compound it over time. So this illustration right here is just simply me handing you $1 one year and then doubling it the next year and doubling it every year for 10 years. Congratulations. At the end of 10 years, you've got $1,000. Watch the next 10 years. As we continue to double our money and it compounds, well, then even better, at the end of 20 years, you've got $1 million. And I know what most of you are thinking. It's like, Devin, really bad example, man. I'm a top performer. It doesn't take me 20 years to accumulate $1 million. Okay, fair. So just ramp my example up to whatever measure and caliber of success you operate at, and the numbers are going to get even more daunting, or, they're going to get worse, not better, when I show you the rest of this conversation. Because what happened here? We invested our money with no what? With no tax. And you and I don't live in a world with no tax. We are taxed left and right. And I'm not going to introduce a 50% tax that we just talked about, not even 40 or 30. I want to be ultra conservative here. Let's just pretend for a second that everyone within the sound of my voice right now is overpaying on taxes by about 15%. And now let's do the same illustration. You're an entrepreneur, you're growing your money, you're investing it in your marketing, you're creating new opportunities, employing new people, and all along the way, you're overpaying by just 15% on your income tax scenario, both for your business and or personal. Well, at the end of 10 years, look at that. Half of your money is missing. You've got less than $500. I want to know, where did the money go? Think about that for a second while I show you the next 10 years. When we get out to year 20, instead of you having $1 million in your nest egg, you now have less than $250,000. Like, pause for effect, right? Holy smokes, what just happened? Where is the 800 grand? $750,000 went missing. I'm not an auditor, but I'd like to know where it went. So any ideas from you, my friends? Think to yourself rhetorically, what happened to the money? And most of you maybe think the government got the money, or your dog ate it, or it floated away in a hot air balloon. Or, as most of you know, this money never existed because it never even had the potential to grow, because it was usurped by a simple 15% tax. And this is kind of the phantom, I don't want to call it theft, but this is the phantom, thing that happens with taxes, is that you meet with your tax preparer and they say, oh, it's not that bad, Josh. We only paid $51,000 in tax. And meanwhile, you're missing out on all kinds of opportunity growth year over year in your business on a very modest 20-year growth chart, right? I don't want anybody missing out on that opportunity. So what we do at TaxHive, we want to help you capture that 15% or even more and not lose it, right? And the problem right now is that most of you are working with a tax preparer and not a tax strategist. And before I go into any detail on strategies, and I'm going to show you a bunch of them, I just need to make this abundantly clear. I'm not here to disparage anyone's CPA or accountant. It's probably your aunt or your uncle. It's maybe your neighbor who you love dearly and you've worked with them for 15 plus years. And throughout the rest of this conversation, you might ask yourself, how come my tax preparer never talked to me about that? I met Devin one time and he showed me more strategies in 20 minutes than I've seen in 20 years. Well, I'm going to come to your tax preparer's defense and say it's not their fault. You're paying them to be a tax preparer, not a tax strategist. This is a little bit like when I had my knee surgeries. I love sports. I'm a competitor, but I've had 3 knee surgeries. I didn't go to my optometrist to get my knees scoped, right? It's just different disciplines in the accounting space. So before anyone gets mad as I go through the rest of these illustrations and you're like, man, I'm about to call my accountant or CPA and ask them what the heck is going on, it's not their fault. You're paying them as a tax preparer. You now just need someone else in the tax space, a strategist, to help you with the rest of this, equation or solution. I love this question. As a tax preparer, which option do you like best? Or sorry, as a taxpayer, which one do you like the best? Do you want to pay now? Do you want to pay later? Or do you want to pay never? And all of you should say never. Thank you, Josh. Most of you are afraid to say it because you're like, oh man, am I going to get audited? Is Siri or Alexa listening to me right now? I don't dare say never. So let's go with later. That sounds more comfortable. Everyone should be searching for and hoping for never. And what do I mean by that? If $5 flows into your operation or flows to you individually, how in the world do you pay taxes on it? Never. And it's not the Al Capone, Wesley Snipes handcuff strategy, right? Like, I don't want to send anybody to prison. So this is not tax evasion. This is tax strategy. It's what's already in the code. It's legal. The government has already done this negotiation with you to say, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, we're willing to trade and barter with you in tax savings because you risked your capital, you risked your intellectual property, and you employed people, and you generated jobs, and you infused, money into the economy. That's how you pay never. And at TaxHive, we categorize these benefits into 4 pillars: deductions, credits, tax gaps, and dynasty strategies. You've probably heard a lot about deductions. Maybe some of you, strategic credits. Very few of you, tax gaps and dynasty strategies. Josh mentioned one already, cost segregation. I'll show you that, what a cost seg study is and how that works. But these are the 4 pillars. This is how we unlock all kinds of money for our clients. And if your tax preparer has never shown you anything like this, it's what I call a little bit of a clue. And it doesn't mean that you have to fire them on the tax prep side. It just means you need a little bit more help on the strategy side. So let's first and foremost talk about the big, beautiful bill. It just passed, right? July 4th, 2025. What was in the big, beautiful bill? Why is it so impactful for us on the taxes front? And then I'm going to go into each pillar and show you a few things on an individual level. So the first thing that is incredible for my real estate, this is powered by Better Mortgage, right? And Neo Home Loans. Bonus depreciation. My goodness, what a massive shift in our tax planning and tax strategy. You go and buy a property, you invest in a piece of equipment, you buy a corporate vehicle. Depreciation says that asset is going to diminish in value over time. And I want to take that diminishing value and use it as a write-off on my taxes. But man, it might take a while for that depreciation schedule to really even save me any money. So what does bonus depreciation do? It takes all of the benefit of that diminishing value of that asset and says, let's capture all of the savings in year one. Simple example. I've got a $100,000 asset that I purchased. I depreciate that asset. It's $100,000. I'm in a 30% tax bracket. In year one, that's $30,000 of savings on bonus depreciation. Bonus depreciation is infusing all kinds of cash back into the marketplace. This is a huge advantage for investors. I need to mention, always got to mention, recapture. If I bought it at 100 and then I sell it at 25, I might have I will have a recapture on the portion that I sold, the 25 grand. But the way that the tax code reads, you're going to be taxed for it one way or another. So you might as well take advantage of depreciation. Don't ever let the recapture talk you out of taking depreciation. It's a massive benefit. Prior to the big, beautiful bill, it was, 3 years at best, in a lot of cases, 5 years, bonus depreciation, all in year one. The other thing that big, beautiful bill did for us is it extended or made permanent the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from 2017. What was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act? Take you back to Trump's first term, 2017. Tax rates went down by about 3% in each bracket, 15 to 12, 25 to 22. It saved us all money on the taxes side. The other thing that it did is it extended or made permanent the child tax credit that was doubled in size. There's also a little thing called QBI, qualified business income, that was also made permanent, which is a 20% deduction on qualified business income. And then the other thing that the big, beautiful bill did that most people have no clue about is what's called SALT and PTET. Okay, now SALT is your state and local taxes. And for a few of you in these states, Delaware, Maine, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, or Vermont, or some of you that have no state income tax, well, then just zone out for a second. Don't lose track, but this does not apply to you. SALT and PTET is basically for every other state. What it says is essentially, prior to the big, beautiful bill, if you paid state and local taxes, you could pay up to $10,000 and use it as a write-off on the federal side. Well, guess what? The Trump administration said 10 grand isn't enough. So they 4X'd it. They made it $40,000 in state and local taxes that you then don't kind of double pay. You get it as a deduction on the federal side, just more savings for you on the taxes front. But here's the little hack that very few people know about. If you're paying state and local taxes through your business, this is where the pass-through entity tax comes into play. It's not capped at 10 grand. It's not capped at 40,000. In fact, there is no cap. No cap on state and local taxes for business taxes, right? This is why being a business owner is a massive advantage. You're able to roll all of that state and local tax deduction over to the federal side, courtesy of the pass-through entity tax. Those are my three big rocks on the big, beautiful bill. There's a few other things that are in there, but these are the big ones. And let's now dive into maximizing your deductions. Guess what? There's over 1,400 deductions in the code. It's a massive challenge for you or any other ordinary person out there that's worrying about your family and caring about your business and your investment portfolio to then go master the tax code and figure out which deductions apply to you, your geography, your industry, your revenue type, right? Like there's all this complexity. So let me just take the most simple deduction of all the 1,400. I think that this is the most standard, far-reaching deduction of all. And sadly, this one, a lot of people even get this one wrong. What is it? It's the home office deduction. You've all heard of it. You're commercializing some square footage in your home and saying, this has a business purpose. I want a business write-off for it. Great. There's two methods to the home office deduction. The first one should be called the lazy method. They call it the simplified method. But most of your accountants might take this approach, which is, I don't want to spend a ton of time, not a ton of effort. Let's just take the square footage of your office, $5 a foot, maximum $1,500 in deduction a year. That's the lazy approach. If any of you are doing that, let's switch you over to the regular method. How does the regular method work? Well, in most cases, it will 3, 4, maybe even 5x the deduction that you get on the home office. So pay close attention here. Here's what happens on the regular method. We establish a business use percentage for that square footage. And it not only allows us to take the same deduction on our direct expenses, the printer, our desk, our chair, our computer, anything directly associated with our business, but it also allows us to deduct indirect expenses. What are all the indirect expenses? Before I show you those, let me be ultra clear on this. You have to have this as a devoted place of business in your home. It can't be the kitchen counter that we serve pizza and salad on, clear it off, whip out our laptop and say, oh, the square footage of my kitchen is bigger than my front office, so let's use the kitchen. No, it's got to be a devoted place of business. But once we do that, here's what happens. This is Sarah, real estate business, modest income of 92,000. I'm not going to go grab my biggest, client example here. Very conservative, 92 grand in income. Utilized the home office deduction, okay? Established a business use percentage of 9%. And then we took that 9% across all indirect expenses, real estate taxes, mortgage interest, utilities, improvements, equipment, furniture, like almost everything associated with the house, maybe even throw in their landscaping, right? Maintenance, so the fuel for the lawnmower. I don't know what else you want to throw in there, but this unlocked for her a $6,200 deduction. And you might be saying, oh, $6,200, no big deal. How many of you like 6,200 better than 1,500? And then you stack that up alongside multiple other deductions and credits. These numbers start to add up really, really fast. Now, the home office hack allows you to start your mileage deduction from the moment you leave your home. And at 70 cents a mile, it starts to add up. We recommend you use apps like MileIQ to track that and keep it really simple and clean. But that's the home office deduction. And nobody's ever told you that there were two different methods to the home office deduction, right? It's kind of weird, but here we are, right? Let's dive into strategic credits. And then I've got two more pillars before I toss it back over to Josh. Strategic credits are beautiful. Why? Because they're not deductions. They're credits. Credits are dollar for dollar. They don't flow through your tax bracket. If I've got a $30,000 tax credit, they don't care about my tax bracket. I get a $30,000 net savings on my tax bill. So strategic credits, to remind you, employee retention credit. That's probably one you're all familiar with. You remember it from COVID. They were so desperate to not have you fire all of your people. It was like, hey, keep your people employed and we'll give you we'll basically subsidize your wages with a tax credit, ERC. Well, ERC is expired. So Devin, what else is there? What are my other opportunities? Well, for Sean and his tree service in Florida, we found the work opportunity tax credit, the WOTC. And nobody's ever told you about that. That's weird because the work opportunity tax credit has application in multiple geographies, in multiple industry types. If you just hire the right person in the right field, the government will subsidize those wages with a tax credit that's dollar for dollar. Here's another one, the vehicle plug-in tax credit. When you have, a green initiative, when you're climate friendly for whatever reason, the government wants to subsidize that. Well, great. Solar panels, battery backup, vehicle plug-in tax credits. We got that for Matt and his IT consulting firm in Virginia. What does an IT consulting firm have to do with vehicle plugins or battery backups or solar? Nothing. It's just that he was able to put them in and get the tax credit. You might say, well, why would Matt ever do that? Spend money on a vehicle. Well, maybe he has a Tesla or some vehicle. He wants to park it outside of his place of business. And he'd rather spend money on that than ship money off to the government, right? And the tax credit, in some cases, dollar for dollar or a percentage of the investment. These tax credits, R&D tax credits as well, they are plentiful. They're very available, but you got to know what you're doing and you got to know where to look for these credits. R&D tax credits are research and development. If you're an innovator, if you're expanding into new industries, the government will not only subsidize wages, but also the equipment that is used. I know many of you are thinking, Devin, I'm not SpaceX. Neither was Elias, right? He ran a little semiconductor energy industry, innovative maintenance and product business there in California. And his business qualified for the R&D tax credit. There's a lot of these opportunities out there. You just got to know where to find them and how to take advantage of them. Pillar number 3, one of my favorites. This is where people say, oh, loophole, loophole. Guys, gals, loophole is like code word for I don't know what I'm talking about. It always has these undertones of like mischievous, nefarious behavior. You're kind of doing something in the gray area. We don't deal in gray area. We like the code and the law, and tax gaps are in the code. Let me show you the most common popular tax gap that all of you could be taking advantage of. Like literally everyone within the sound of my voice should be able to take advantage of the Augusta rule. You've likely heard of it, Rule 280A. My question is if you've heard of it, why aren't you implementing it? Odds are you're working with a tax preparer that's a big weenie. They're afraid of the IRS. They're a little chicken and they're like, oh, we don't want to get audited. Man, if I'm doing things by the right way, if I'm documenting everything the right way, you have nothing to fear. And yeah, it might be a little paper audit that comes your way every 10 years, but the amount of money that you're going to save in order to issue documentation back to that IRS agent to say, yeah, I used Rule 280A and I did it the right way, then they go away. And we handle those, on a daily basis. It's not a big deal. Most audits are not like the FBI showing up in guns a-blazing. It's a paper audit. It's like, hey, you use Rule 280A. Can you send us the documentation? Yep, here you go. So here's what Rule 280A says. You can rent your home out and not claim the income. Does that sound crazy? Have any of you rented out your house and not claim the income? How is that even possible? Well, it's because you can do it up to 14 times a year. We usually recommend 12, do it on a monthly cadence, but the code actually says 14 times a year, so 2 weeks out of the year. And you have to use it for a business purpose. And what we do is you rent it out to your business, the same way that your business would go and book a Marriott boardroom or a Hilton conference room. Like this is no different. It's your house. Your house, instead of the Marriott or Hilton, is going to invoice your business. You have to use it for a specific business purpose. I can't pretend, right? I can't make stuff up, but if I keep some notes, I mark who was there and what we talked about, business purpose, right? A training event, a recruiting event, client appreciation, employee build, team building exercise of some kind. You bring them into your home, you bring in the food, and all of that is not claimed on income on the personal side. So let me just paint a picture for you. The business gets invoiced by you individually. The business pays the invoice. They pay a reasonable rate, something the inline going market for that area. You can't charge your business $100,000 and call it the Augusta rule, right? So here's an actual client example. Chris from Washington rented his home out for board meetings, used peerspace.com at our recommendation for his comparable so that he knew he was using a reasonable rate. He did this 12 times a year at $1,600 a pop. That's $19,000 in tax deduction. But hang on a second, Devin, you told me I don't claim the income. What are you talking about, a deduction? This is a double dip. The business gets the deduction for the expense. So you pick up a deduction on the business side. That $19,000 flows to you individually, tax-free. You don't claim the income, the $19,000 on your personal individual return. And now you've got $20,000 tax-free flowing from your business to you individually, all because you made your home available to your business at a reasonable rate, 12 to 14 times a year, right? The Augusta rule is like underutilized. Many people know about it. They see it on a chat board or a forum somewhere, but this is my opportunity to remind you, YouTube and Reddit are not your tax strategists. You'll get yourself in a world of trouble if you think you can document or plan and strategize the right way off of an online forum. So just kind of be aware of that. You want to be working with professionals. I've got a free gift for everyone that's listening right now. I have a 10-page guide on how to use the Augusta rule the right way. I'll give you the access to that here at the end for anybody that's a little bit of an action taker. And by the way, you can, this is not a get your visa or mastery. This is all training and content and value driven. But I do have a little prize for those of you that take some action here at the end with that resource guide. Pillar number 4, and then we're going to wrap up. Dynasty strategies. Man, I'm not much of a baseball player, but if I were, I would know, and I do know, home runs are better than doubles and singles, right? And in taxes, dynasty strategies are home runs and grand slams. We're not picking up little pennies here and there. These are big dollars. So let me show you one of my favorite strategies within Dynasty. The other thing that I need to explain about Dynasty strategies, maybe some of you have kind of clued out for a second. You say, Devin, I don't own a business. I'm just a high wage earner on a W-2. I own some real estate. I've used Better and Neo to leverage my way into multiple properties, but I don't have like a big business that I need a bunch of write-offs for. But man, I'd love to save some money on my personal taxes for my W-2 wage. Dynasty strategies apply to you whether you're a business owner or not. So listen closely. Watch this. Dynasty strategies there's a myriad of them. Solo 401ks, captive insurance, cost seg. I'm going to show you a handful here real quick. The accelerated donation strategy is one of the most underutilized. And let's just paint a picture for you. Let's pretend that everyone on the call here collectively, we owe the IRS $100,000 right now. What are we going to do? What are our options? How do we keep more of our money? Well, we could redirect some of that $100,000. And I want to be ultra clear on this. I'm not asking you to grab money out of your savings account that's part of your reserve funds or part of your, future capital improvements on your properties. I'm talking about $100,000 that's going to leave your bank account if you do nothing because the IRS is going to get it. So instead of sending it to the IRS, let's send half of it to a nonprofit that's eligible for this multiplier, and we donate the money. When we do that, we pick up a multiplier, 4 to 6 times multiplier. If I go around numbers and just use 5 as the multiplier, then I'm picking up a $250,000 deduction on my $50,000 donation. Now, pump the brakes for a second. I didn't just save you $250,000. I got you a deduction of $250,000. So we donated the 50, we got the deduction of $250,000. That has to flow through our tax bracket, call it 32%. That's an $80,000 savings, except pump the brakes one more time. We still donated $50,000. So the net effect is $30,000. But my goodness, how many of you would rather, instead of paying the IRS $100,000, how many of you would rather pay them 20, donate 50, and keep the 30? I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? Doesn't take an arm twist to get that done. That's the accelerated donation strategy. And right now, too many of your accountants and CPAs are sitting back with their pen and their calculator and going, yep, sorry, man. Unfortunately, 100,000 is the bill this year. And there's no strategy. There's no implementation. There's no alternative because, I don't know, they're just not aware or they're afraid. So let me show you a few more. This is a moving company, 8 years in business. The tax plan we delivered to them, almost $75,000. That's about $360,000 over the next 5 years. The tax plan that we create and build for our clients is customized. It's suited to you and meets your geography, your industry, your corporate structure, all of those things. So let me show you a few other Dynasty strategies. Captive insurance. Every business has risk. What do you do about that risk? Well, you usually buy insurance for the risk. Captive insurance says I'm going to create my own captive and I'm going to buy the insurance from myself. That sounds interesting. And guess what? Captive insurance comes with a tax benefit. So look in the top right-hand corner. I know there's a lot on the slide here. I'm not trying to distract you. Just look at that before captive section. Profit of $1.2 million for Lisa and her business, an actual client of ours, had a federal tax obligation of $444,000. And we said, hey, among a myriad of other strategies, let's go ahead and implement the captive insurance and let's save you $74,000 in year one. And that's just one strategy. Let me show you another one. Let's take the oil and gas strategy. Without the oil and gas investment in the top right-hand corner, taxable income of $450,000, federal tax rate of 35, $157,500 would have been owed. Total savings on the oil and gas investment, $35,000. I don't know if you were, I grew up in the calculator days, but I know off the top of my head, that's right near about a 20% pickup in savings just in that first year on oil and gas. Now, this one will knock you out of the park. I mentioned a vehicle plug-in tax credit. This is a solar project and credit. Now, without the solar financing, in the top right-hand corner, there was a $500,000 profit, $185,000 in taxes owed. And what did the federal tax credit on the solar project do? Well, alongside other credits and depreciation and interest write-off, we've got $110,000 of savings. That takes their $185,000 tax bill down to what, 75,000 bucks. It's about a 60% improvement, all because of one strategy. I'll show you one more if I wasn't done already. In fact, Josh mentioned this in the early going. This is one of the strategies he's using: cost segregation. That sounds complex. How does that work, Devin? We segregate or separate the individual costs of a building, and we say, hey, these assets all depreciate at different rates, right? The roof might have a 30-year life to it, but the carpet might only have a 3-year life to it. So every item in the building is going to depreciate at a different rate. Well, when you go and do a cost seg study, this annual tax deduction on regular depreciation was going to save this client about $4,700 a year. And then we went and did the cost seg study, $37,000 in year one. I don't know about you, but I like 37 way better than 4,700, right? The math on this really starts to stack up, and this is just pillar number 4. And we already covered tax gaps and credits and deductions, right? So these things all stack on top of each other. And in the early going, I talked about making a better than 15% improvement. I think many of you can see how we'll outperform that number in most cases. You know, for everyone on this call, we'd love to go to work for you and start to make some of that happen. So I have what I call the most ethical bribe ever. Okay. And Kevin would tell you, you work so hard to grow your business or grow your portfolio, or you earn that high wage earning W-2 gig, then don't overpay on taxes. Keep more of your money. You deserve it. You know, your children and grandchildren deserve it. Future generations deserve to hold on to more of that money. And the tax code is your friend. It's not your enemy. So at TaxHive, we always like to evaluate this in reverse. And we say, yeah, hey, we can tell you what happens when you work with us. Let's first evaluate what happens if you don't work with us. What's the cost of doing nothing? Because inaction is far too convenient, right? I know the cost of doing nothing, and we've tracked these numbers across over 4,000 tax plans that we've delivered to clients. Look at this little gauge here. This is a little bit like the speedometer as you're going down the freeway. How much gross revenue are you doing a year in your business or with your investments or otherwise? And move that needle wherever you sit. Maybe you're, somewhere in the middle. You're doing $500,000 to $3 million in annual revenues. Well, TaxHive on average is going to find you between 50 to 100 grand in actual net dollar savings, not deductions, actual savings. And this, I feel like, is both the reward and the cost of doing nothing. It's the reward of doing something and the cost of doing nothing. And so my invitation for you with a couple of bonuses is to say, if you're interested, if I've told you something you've never heard about, it might merit a 15-minute phone call, one-on-one, where we can just do a little discovery and say, what do you own? Where do you own it? What is your industry? What is your corporate structure like? How can we help? And if we can help, then we'd love to do business with you. If we can't, well, then we'll tell you that we can't and we'll move on. But here's the advantage or the ethical bribe that I have for you. For anybody that schedules a call with my team to have this really simple one-on-one conversation, I'll give you the 10-page guide to the Augusta rule. I interview Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, on a monthly basis. I'll give you my most recent conversation with Kevin. It was just last month. I asked him about interest rates, about tariffs, about AI, marketing, social media, everything that a business owner and entrepreneur would want to hear out of his mouth. And we talked about it for an hour. I'll send you the link to that interview. Okay. That's bonus number 2. And then bonus number 3 is that we don't charge anything for this strategic call. You might call your CPA and they bill you hourly or something like that. We don't do any of that. We do a free discovery call. We even have a guarantee in place that we'll tell you about when we jump on that call. But I'd love for any of you that are in a spot where you feel like, man, TaxHive feels different. These guys are, they're creative and they've shown me some things that I've never heard about or seen before. We'd love to go to work for you and just put way more money in your pocket, help you keep everything that you've earned. And the fastest way to do that is to scan a QR code or go to taxhive.com/Neo. You'll get all 3 of those perks or benefits in this little bundle pack that I've prepared for this group specifically. And man, we'd just be honored to converse with you and see what it is you're doing and see if we can unlock anything. By the way, all of the numbers that I shared with you on that average savings, that was in addition to everything you're already doing. So Most of the people we talk to, they're doing a few things. Their accountant is comfortable with 3 or 4 things. We want you to be comfortable with 13 or 14 things or 20 things, right? And that's where we come in. So this opportunity, you might have a great accountant or a great CPA. We're going to help you raise that level up and keep more of your money in your business. You can invest it, put it into your marketing, retain better talent, invest in better software, right? I'm sure Josh maybe has some other real estate opportunities that you might be able to put the money to work and leverage your way into. And ultimately, we just love the opportunity to help you keep more of what you've worked so hard to earn. So, Josh, I'll turn it over to you. I know you've got a couple of other things to share with the group. I'll leave this up for another 10 seconds if anybody wants to scan the QR code or go to taxhive.com/neo. But man, I'm so grateful to have this conversation and looking forward to the Q&A coming up.
Great job, Devin. And I want to share my screen in just a second and talk a little bit about that compounding effect of overpaying for taxes. I would like you, when I pull up my screen in just a moment, to go back to the cost segregation study, because I want to point something out as a real estate investor that have used this strategy for many, 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 many years. And in many years, I had very high income, way upper tax bracket, and I paid zero in taxes for many years using this tax segregation, cost segregation, the cost segregation studies. So let me take over the screen share real quick, and then we'll go back to that, that cost segregation. But I just threw this in ChatGPT real quick. I love that you started this conversation, Devin, with don't think about what you're overpaying in taxes this year. You should actually be thinking about what is the lost compounding growth of that overpayment in tax over 20 or 30 years. So I just ran a quick analysis. If you had $50,000 more in your take-home pay rather than you paid that out to the IRS, compounded at 9%. If you look at the S&P average over the last 30 years, it's compounded between 10 and 12%, depending if you have dividends reinvested. If you look at a lot of my real estate investments over the years, 9% is very conservative. So let's say I had that extra 50K, I put it in the S&P 500, or I took that 50K, I put it as a down payment on a building, and let's just assume I got a 9% annual return. Well, at the end of 20 years, that $50,000 in overpaying for taxes didn't cost you 50 grand. It cost you $280,000. And if you're young or you study Brian Johnson and you think you're going to live forever like I do, then you can do it over 30 years. And you can say, what is that 50,000 compounded at 9% over 30 years? $663,000. So I love how you framed that up in the beginning. If you're overpaying in taxes, you shouldn't be thinking about this year's liability. You should be thinking about the loss 20 years or 30 years down the road. So that's the number. Every year you save $50,000 in taxes, that's the number your children are not getting. That's what we need to take away from the first part of this presentation. And could you pull back that cost segregation? Because I want to point out one other thing that I think is really important for people to understand. Okay, so in this illustration, Devin showed that the investor bought a $500,000 commercial property, and they were able to, in the bottom right where it says 37,000, they saved $37,000 in tax liability. That's not a deduction. That's the savings in year one that you didn't pay to the IRS, right, Devin?
That's 100% correct. Yep. Okay.
So instead of paying that $37,000 to the IRS, let's say you had that $37,000 to invest. And when you buy a $500,000 property, you don't need $500,000 in cash. Let's say you put down 20%. So if you had $100,000 that you put down on a $500,000 property, you would save $37,000 in taxes, which means you really only need to come up with $63,000 for a down payment to control a $500,000 property, because you're going to save $37,000. I just wanted to frame that back up, because each year when I get towards the third and the fourth quarter, my wife and I are having these conversations. Well, sweetheart, do you want to pay another $100,000 in taxes this year, or do you want to go buy another property? Oh, I guess we'll go buy another property. Anything else you would add on to that framing? Because this to me is like the most important, powerful tool to drastically reduce your taxes. And hey, we're in 2025. It's September. People still have enough time to buy a property and take this deduction this year. So let's just slow down a second. What
Yeah.
else would you explain around this cost segregation study?
Yeah, I love the pause on this because if we go back also to one of the early slides about bonus depreciation, talk about a massive shift in how quickly you can capture the savings. If you notice, the way we got the 37 grand was that there was in that cost seg study where they identified $100,000 of the property that could be depreciated over 5 years. But then in the presence of bonus depreciation, we don't have to wait the 5 years, right? We can take that 100,000 in a 37% tax bracket, and now we've got all of it in year one. And I mean, I don't know what another administration might do or how that might change, but man, when the tax code is in my favor, it's like this is the time, irons in the fire. Let's get to work and let your capital, help you secure more property and make more investments and do it the right way. As you said, you have this conversation with your wife, IRS or real estate. I mean, forgive my laughter, but my goodness, you've got potential for, appreciation in the market, all of the tax benefit. You've got the, debt service reduction that year over year, you're paying down your principal. And man, I mean, it's just the benefits on this side are, I don't want to say endless, but they're substantial. And the benefits on this side of shipping the money off to the IRS are as close to zero as you can ever get until you want to start talking about, well, it's for the greater good and our infrastructure and our government needs the money. I think the government needs less of your money and our society needs more investment, more capital infused into it. And yeah, I mean, I love that conversation, but I appreciate the pause on this cost seg. I tried to be sensitive to time and didn't want to breeze over it too quickly, but it's definitely layered into this real estate conversation and the opportunity to, put some money to work. And whether it's short-term rental, long-term rental, second home, vacation home, like all of those things have these tax benefits and implications.
Or buy your office building that you're currently renting if that's your situation. But I just wanted to pause on this because it's not too late in 2025 to implement this strategy and to take a major deduction. Devin, the only thing I don't like about having you on as a co-host is I have to go after you, and you're a very tough act to follow. But let me take over, and I'm going to share for just a moment here. And I'm going to bring up my slide deck, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the entrepreneur capital lines of credit and home mortgages for entrepreneurs that don't require 2 years of tax returns to qualify. This is something, Neo Home Loans is an entrepreneur grown company. We are entrepreneurs, we serve entrepreneurs, and we've found a major problem in the capital source for entrepreneurs. 82% of businesses fail because of cash flow problems. They don't have capital lines they can draw on when hard times come. 29% of startups fail simply because they run out of money. And that's just improper planning, in my opinion. 90% of small business owners say the lack of capital is holding them back. That is the lack of capital that is preventing them from scaling and growing their businesses the way they would like to. And the problem as it relates to capital financing related to housing stems back to the Dodd-Frank Act. So traditional lending rules rely on W-2 income and consistent income on tax returns. Well, if you're an entrepreneur like me, my tax returns are anything but consistent. I have big swings up, I have big swings down, big quarters, big months, big years, and then the opposite on the other side. So the reason why it has been harder for entrepreneurs to qualify for traditional bank financing since the Great Recession was the Dodd-Frank Act that says it's actually illegal for a bank to make a loan to a borrower without proving their ability to repay that mortgage indebtedness. And most lenders have taken a very conservative approach to prove a borrower's ability to repay. And if you have great deductions or inconsistencies in your tax returns, you may get declined for home mortgage loans or lines of credit secured by your real estate. The solution that we've created at Neo, powered by Better, is what we call entrepreneur capital lines of credit. No tax returns needed. You can qualify with bank statements. You can qualify if it's an investment property with income that property is generated. You can qualify with other assets that can be used in lieu of tax returns. You can access up to 90 to 95% of your property's value. So if you have a primary residence, a second home, an investment property, those are all eligible. You could pull a line of credit against that property. And if you've got a low 2 or 3 or 4% first mortgage, you don't have to touch it. You can leave that loan there, access the equity, use it to expand and grow your business or to create security in times of downtimes. Loan amounts up to $750,000. Fast approvals. We usually have approvals done within 72 hours. And you can use your funds however you want. You can invest. You can buy a property for a tax segregation study. You can a cost segregation study. I keep saying tax segregation study. You can expand your business. You can renovate. You can pay down debt. And this program is available to clients with credit scores starting at 640. So you don't have to have perfect credit in order to qualify for these loans. The fact is that real estate has outpaced inflation in almost every state in the country over the last 30 years. So going back to 1991, I believe this map is through. So going back over 34 years, the national cumulative appreciation average is 329%. But hey, all you folks that live in Utah and have owned real estate, we have 629% real estate appreciation, the fastest growing appreciation in the nation over the last 34 years. And all of that equity is like $100 bills locked behind the sheetrock of our home, and we want to be able to give you access to it if you need it. So here's how the process works. It's simple, it's fast, it doesn't require tax returns. You talk with us, we have a strategy session. We qualify you quickly. You can access your equity, and then you can use your capital to scale your business, invest, eliminate debt. I'm talking here today about capital lines of credit, but these same programs will extend to somebody who wants to buy a new primary residence and needs a first mortgage, a second home and needs a first mortgage, an investment property that needs to use a second mortgage. So if you've been declined by a bank because of your tax returns, when banks say no, Neo says yes. So why choose Neo? We are entrepreneurs. We understand entrepreneurs. We don't look through the lens of a traditional bank underwriter who's just trying to save their job by saying no when they look at a risky entrepreneur's profile. Risky, right? Multiple businesses, tax deductions. It's risky if you're a W-2 employee and you don't understand those sophisticated structures. So our job is to make accessing your capital simple, fast, and strategic. If you would like to have a strategy session with us, feel free to scan this QR code. I will also drop the URL to schedule a time with us into the chat here in just a moment. But we'd love to chat with you, answer your questions, tell you what's possible. And if you can buy a property before the end of the year so you can qualify for a cost segregation study, keep more of your money, pay the IRS less, nothing would make us happier than that. And I'll drop the link here in just a second. Devin, with that, let me stop sharing my screen. We've got just a few minutes left. Who has questions? Is any brave soul out there have any? No problem, Wallace. Thanks for coming. It was great to see you. Does anybody else have any questions for either Devin or myself?
Yeah, I see one from Brock in the Q&A. I don't know if this was a private one or if anybody can see it, but it's worth mentioning. He says, hey, is TaxHive doing the cost seg studies, or are we referring, outside to specific firms that specialize in those things? He says, unfortunately, Fargo, North Dakota isn't full of some of these specialists, right?
Doctor.
Certainly one of the many benefits of working with a TaxHive. And we have vetted, trusted partners, in some cases where required, that are fiduciaries or that have specialty, expertise in cost seg. We specialize in the identification of tax strategies that are going to work for you and your business. Many of them we help you implement directly, the deductions, the credits, the tax gaps. Some of the dynasty strategies, though, we introduce a partner, a trusted partner, to help you implement, help you execute, and or acquire, right, on those various strategies. So yes, we have some partners that we would gladly introduce you to and make sure that you're aware of. And then it looks like he has one follow-up here. I'll oversimplify, but TaxHive is purely consulting on the tax planning. Is TaxHive working alongside current CPA accounting relationships or replacing if we want to replace? Yeah, even great clarification here as well. We are not just a consulting firm. We are a full-scale tax firm when it comes to tax preparation, bookkeeping, and business tax strategy. So if you want us to be your tax preparer as well, that's not uncommon. About 60% of our tax plan clients also say they're ready to fire their CPA that's still working out of a filing cabinet. And we're happy to do both. But we're very high on the strategic side because that's what's lacking in the marketplace in large measure. And then if you want to bring everything into one house, we're certainly happy to stand behind the work and also do the preparation for you as well.
Great answer. Hey, just one thing I just noticed. I just clicked on the link and I went to a page before this page that said the scheduling tool wasn't available. I just clicked the refresh button in the top left-hand corner, and then it brought up this scheduling calendar. So if anybody is trying to schedule an appointment, they go to a page for schedule an appointment. It says there's no times available. Just hit refresh and it should bring that up. Sorry for the glitch of the system that we use there. Great. Any other questions? Okay. This has been a lot of fun. Devin, you did a tremendous job. Thank you so much. It was great to have everybody here today. Any parting words of wisdom, Devin, before we sign off this evening?
No, man, just, taxes not paid is money made. So, let's keep more money in your pocket and then put it to work with a great team like Neo and Better Mortgage. So
thanks, Devin. Appreciate you being here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Hope this was super valuable. And we're here. If there's any questions that you have, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great evening, everybody.
God bless.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.